Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemonski with me as always, Poppin' Rick.
What's up?
Today we're gonna try to expedite, this show as we always do. /show of the week starts and says trade targets, and we are going to give you our best buys and our best sells, guys that we're looking into trading for and trading away, as we go into week 5. Help you build your rosters. In the home league, I usually have made like 3 trades by now, but I feel like everyone's holding. I'm waiting for the panic. I don't know why no one's trading.
Panic is starting.
When does the home league start trading? Because I need to make a trade. I'm deprived.
Yeah, I've been trying to make trades, but the only people that are willing to make trades is you and another guy in our league.
Yeah, that's a little bit ridiculous. Usually our guys like to trade, but maybe I fleeced them too hard.
Maybe.
But anyway, yeah, so we'll do that. Before we do, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or like and comment down below. Leave us any questions that you have for Rick or I pertaining to trades. It's 4 weeks into the season. What is it? I'm trying to think. 15, 16, and 17 is the playoffs. So that's 14 weeks of the regular season for fantasy football. You got 4 out of 14 completed. If you're 0-4, you're not done yet. We're not done with you. So don't leave because you're 0-4 and your team is but. We can fix it. Just leave a comment with your concerns and pain.
Yeah, man, my team sucks. I'm 0-4. I have Joe Burrow. I had Jonathan Taylor and Puka Nacua.
Imagine having like the all bust team and going into the season being like,
it's very easy to have guys that are already out for the year, like all on your team, like Mike Williams, J.K. Dobbins.
For sure.
Maybe you had Rodgers or something.
You drafted Rodgers. Rodgers was a thing. That's right.
Yeah.
He
went in the 8th round in our home league?
I totally forgot. Yeah, the person that took him was trying to keep him away from you and me.
And we weren't going to draft.
I don't think we were going to take him either.
I would have taken him if he fell, but I wasn't going to take him in the 8th round or 9th round.
Those were the only teams.
Probably even the 10th round.
It was just like, screw you guys. If you're not taking a quarterback, you're not taking any one of them. But I got Anthony Richardson, so.
And I got Kirk Cousins. Whee!
My quarterback's more fun than your quarterback, that's for sure.
Yeah, he is.
Mine got whacked in the face and threw.
But I got the bad stack, the stack that isn't even good.
They
him and Addison.
There was one throw Richardson had this week, and he's as a passer, he's got a lot of work to do, but he's just got this ridiculous talent. And he threw a ball, and somebody just punched him in the arm, and you would imagine that would slow your arm down. And he freaking slang shot it 50 yards.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was like, this dude's crazy.
He's a beast.
I took out my water bottle in my demonstration for the camera. But anyway, so we're gonna give you our buys and sells, help you build your team here. Because you're not done. You're not done if you're 0-4. You still got this. We can still get you back. You have to win a heck of a lot of games. Probably got to go 8-2 down the stretch to have a chance here. But season's not over, so bear with us. All right, let's start with the buys. We got number 1, Jahmyr Chase. So, we've talked about the Bengals a little bit with Joe Burrow being not great this year. The offense in and of itself is not great. Now, there's a couple of different things surrounding this that you kind of need to watch if you're going to make a trade for Jahmyr Chase. And I'm curious, Rick, what your thoughts are on this. But if they shut Joe Burrow down for the season, are you worried about Jahmyr Chase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a risk you have to take. Would Chase still be good without Burrow? Probably.
Okay.
But is he going to be the guy you drafted? No.
No. So
100% no.
you have to take that into account when you're trading for Jahmyr Chase. So don't dump the entire ship for him. Like, make sure that you try to get him for as little as you can. Because if Joe Burrow does get shut down for the season, there is that problem. So I wanted to preface this by saying that I don't think Joe Burrow is going to get shut down. Like, if he was going to get shut down, he would have been shut down already. So
I think the odds of him getting shut down aren't high.
Yes.
It's not like it's.
My thing is that you're still seeing a massive target share for Jahmyr Chase. Yeah. And the first 2 weeks of the season were not good. It was 9-8. The last 2 weeks, he's had 26 and 14. So he's obviously seen massive amounts of improvements, and he's better than wide receiver 21 on the season. I think as the weeks go along, with the target share that he has, he's going to start making improvements. He hasn't caught a touchdown on the season. Everyone's been talking about that. So at some point he'll catch a touchdown. But my thing with Jahmyr Chase is that he's so innately talented and has such a connection with Joe Burrow that the target share is not changing and things aren't changing for him. So, like, in terms of how he can produce. So I would try to make my best offer to get Jahmyr Chase, see if you can get him on your team, because I still think he has that top 5 ceiling in fantasy football. He's obviously not the top 3 player that you drafted him to be so far this year, especially with Joe Burrow not being great. So I think it's an opportunity to kind of, if you can get him, buy him low and see if you can get him on your team, because I think that he's still one of the elite receivers in the league that can win you fantasy weeks. AJ Brown had success with freaking Ryan Tannehill, and I think that half of Joe Burrow is Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you can trade for Chase, I think it's a good time to do it. He has the Cardinals this week, and then I want to say that his strength of schedule isn't really that difficult. And you are right; it's the first 2 weeks, right? The first 2 weeks he wasn't good. But even those first 2 weeks, he had 8 and 9 targets. Week 3, he has 15. Last week, he had 9. I think what he's done the last 2 weeks is more of what he is.
Yeah.
Which is 14 and 26, I think. And to think, he's wide receiver 21, put up 26 points, 14 points. He does not have a touchdown yet this year.
Yeah.
If Burrow comes back to what he was, starts throwing a couple touchdowns, Jahmyr Chase is going to be explosive. There's a reason he was a wide receiver 2 going into the year. I think you even had him as the wide receiver 1, or he was really close to it, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a reason for that, and he doesn't do that without touchdowns. So he needs some more touchdowns. He needs Burrow to start playing better. But if those things happen, he's going to be a top 3 receiver.
Yeah.
He 100% will be a top 3 receiver. And you can get him right now for the price of probably, I wouldn't say a first-round value. Maybe like a late second-round value. You could probably get him for that. And if you can get him for that, do it. 100% do it. I think the rewards outweigh the risk. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. And I think he's still the guy. Like, he's still a dude. So,
yeah,
like, regardless of who his quarterback is, I still think he's going to put up big fantasy weeks because he is an elite wide receiver in fantasy.
Yeah, if football. Theoretically Burrow, they do shut him down.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be a top 3 guy, but he could still have big weeks, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. He's still like a top 12 receiver in fantasy at minimum. So, all right, let's move on to the next guy. Second bye, Zay Flowers. You got to get this guy on your team. He started off the season this past week. He did not have the greatest game against Cleveland. Only 4 targets, 3 catches, 56 yards, and only 8 fantasy points. But weeks 1 through 3, he had 17, 10, and 13, and he got 10, 5, and 10 targets. So he's a little bit inconsistent in terms of target share to start the season. But one thing has been clear to start the season, and that is Zay Flowers is realistically their number 1 wide receiver. Bateman hasn't really been anything. Odell Beckham got hurt. And Zay Flowers is really the only guy left there. So, which ironically, we could have predicted that for the freaking Baltimore Ravens. They went from having 3 guys.
That's why I drafted him in best ball because of that.
So, for him, he's still a rookie. It's going to take him time to develop into a really, really good wide receiver. And it's going to take him time to develop a workload and a share in the offense that ends up being really good. But I would take I would take Zay Flowers, and I think he's cheap. Like, he's not going to be like a super expensive buy. So, I'm trying to think of an equivalent player, but somebody who's right around a running back who's right around like RB20 to RB25 is probably what it would take to get Zay Flowers. But I would offer that, and maybe even lower because of some of these bust games that he has had. But I think there's a ceiling for him, and I think he can break out, especially if he gets to like midway point or halfway point of the season. That's usually when rookie wide receivers start to really catch fire. And if he's already showing signs of being a really good fantasy asset, like, in all his games, he caught 9 of 10 targets week 1, 4 of 5 targets week 2, 8 of 10 targets week 3, 3 of 4. Like, if the target share is consistent for him, he's not going to have weeks like A.J. Brown where he gets 12 targets and 6 catches. Every single week for him is going to be like 80 to 90% catch. So, like, if he starts getting 9, 10 catches a game, you can anticipate that he's going to get 6, 7 catches, which in PPR is beautiful. So, I would try to get Zay Flowers before he really starts to break out. And, I think that might happen over the next 2 weeks against Pittsburgh and Tennessee, two of the easiest pass defenses in the NFL right now, to beat for wide receivers. So I would get him now before you lose out.
Yeah, and I think it was a big opportunity for him this week with Odell and Bateman out, and he only had 4 targets, but Lamar only had 19 pass attempts too. They were dominating that whole game, and they ran the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more ways, more opportunity, even when Bateman and Odell come back. Mm-hmm. Odell, I mean, I don't know if he's going to play. Like, even when he comes back, he's going to probably get re-injured at some point. I don't trust him at all. And then Bateman is also pretty injury prone, but even when he's out there, he's clearly behind Flowers. Flowers is the guy in that offense. Mm-hmm. And he's another guy that has had very much success so far to start the year, 17, 10, 13, and 8 without a touchdown. So once those touchdowns start coming in, he could be having some monster weeks. And as you said, he's got some pretty easy matchups coming up. Not just Pittsburgh, Tennessee, you go further. Mm-hmm. Detroit's defense is better than it was last year, but I don't think it's elite. Arizona, Seattle, Cleveland's a tough matchup, but then he's got the Bengals and the Chargers. So he's got a decent amount of easy matchups here coming up. So I think he's a perfect buy.
Yeah, for sure. Love Zay Flowers. I've been trying to target him in our home league, but
you're not going to get him.
I know that's not ever happening, so screw us. All right, number 3, and Rick's going to have a tough time with this one, is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, now, this is a
soft spot for Rick, because Jahmyr Gibbs is a good player, but I
think he's a good buy in Dynasty.
Detroit Lions don't think. Well, they think that. They just haven't gotten there yet. So David Montgomery has been the clear one there. There's a couple of things for David Montgomery. He's not really an efficient runner. He's been good, but he's not really been super efficient. He's just a veteran guy that knows what he's doing. And I think that's why he's been getting the work. There was another NFL running back. Who was it that was breaking down Montgomery's film? Austin Eckler? I think it was Austin Eckler. He's been hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was on with I think Matt Harmon in the Yahoo Fantasy Sports podcast, and he was talking about how David Montgomery does a really good job at running between gaps in his own running scheme, and how like young players don't necessarily know how to run through those immediately, and he's just a veteran that knows how to do those things. And I think that's why Detroit probably likes him. So I don't know what's going on with David Montgomery, but I guarantee you that man at some point blows something up. He either gets hurt or he starts sucking so bad you have to take him out. So something's going to happen to David Montgomery. Even if they're at a 50-50 split, I still think Jahmyr Gibbs can be successful, because with just the 3 games that he's played with David Montgomery, Gibbs has had 27, 48, and 37% snap percentage. But in those games, he's still getting somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 15 touches. This past week, he had 13. The week before, without David Montgomery, he had 19. The week before that, he had somewhere in the vicinity of 16. And then week 1, he had 9. So he's always getting anywhere between 10 to 15 touches. And I think that's just with around 40% of the snaps when Montgomery is on the field. If they get to 50-50, he's definitely going to get enough work and enough pass catching opportunity at minimum to score some fantasy points. The only reservation that I have with Jahmyr Gibbs, because he's had 8, 12, 9, and 9 on the season for fantasy points. So in PPR, that's not great. But my thing with him is that if he starts scoring some touchdowns, obviously things will change. Now, it's going to be hard for him to do that with Montgomery on the field because Montgomery is the feature guy. But I think my thing with Gibbs is that at some point in the season, he is too talented to not, and he was drafted with too high of a draft pick. This is not the same situation as Swift. Swift was in the system, and Dan Campbell came in, and it wasn't his guy. This is his guy. At some point, I know we've seen this story before, but at some point, Gibbs is going to be the guy, and he's going to start producing, and that's going to happen this year. So I like Jahmyr Gibbs as a buy this week. I think that you like guys like Rick who are super low on him right now, are going to be dudes that you can kind of get him. Like his value keeps decreasing. Like last week, Rick, I offered you DJ Moore for Jahmyr Gibbs. After the 27-point game this week, would you take that if I offered it to you now?
Probably.
Yeah, and now it's off the table because you waited too long.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I would go after Gibbs because the value is decreasing for him, especially in the fantasy community too. And it's going to be a guy that you're probably going to be able to get for cheap. But I like to take that shot because if you take that shot and it works out, you end up with a really, really good running back.
Yeah, Gibbs is just the things that you said. Like, I don't disagree with anything you said, and it all are valid points. And I think he's the more efficient running back. Not even I think. I know he's the more efficient running back. He's the more talented running back. But it doesn't matter. It does not matter. The coaching staff loves David Montgomery. He's this year's Jamal Williams. He plays the exact same role. And I don't think that's going to change. I really don't. I think that, is he going to get 30 carries a week? Probably not, but he's the guy. David Montgomery is the guy. Gibbs is the pass-catching running back. And that's all he is. He's their third down back who isn't even always out there for third down. Sometimes he comes out for decoy plays. Like, he's not getting touches. It just, as long as David Montgomery's on the field, I don't see a world where Gibbs even gets 15 touches a game. And the thing you said with touchdowns too, like, he's the only way he's going to get a touchdown is if he breaks off a big play. That's it. Because if they're in the red zone, David Montgomery gets the ball. That's the way their offense has been the first 4 weeks.
It can't change.
And I don't really think it's going to change.
It will change.
I hope you're right.
I guarantee it.
I don't. It's still. I'm not out on him in Dynasty though. I just traded for him in a Dynasty league.
Oh, there you go. Because the fantasy community is down on Jahmyr Gibbs.
And I think
he dropped 8 spots.
It's not even really his fault. Like, he hasn't been that bad. It's just he's averaging 5 yards a carry or close to 5 yards a carry.
He's just capped. He's capped without touchdowns.
Well, he's capped without touchdowns, and then we were thinking it was going to be a split. But Montgomery's getting like close to 30 touches a game, or 20 to 30.
Gibbs is
getting like
15.
He's getting like 13. He had 12 this week. Week 3, Montgomery did not play. And then week 2, he had 14, and week 1, he had 9. So 14 is the most touches he's had with Montgomery.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But goodbye if you have the opportunity to get him.
I guess.
Sells for the week. We have Keenan Allen. Rick, tell us why Keenan Allen is a sell.
So some of the guys on this show, on our sell show this week, like, I already know there's going to be comments being like, why would you sell him? He's a great player. He's literally winning my fantasy. We're not saying get rid of these guys. We're saying to sell them because their value is, I think, probably at a peak. I think Keenan Allen right now is at his peak value. 14, 31, 46, and 12. That's his stat line for the season. Yeah. Can you guess where he is in wide receiver rankings right now, or where he's been through 4 weeks?
He's like top 3, right?
He's wide receiver 2.
Oh!
So he's ahead of guys like Ja'Marr Chase. He's ahead of guys like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
He's ahead of guys like CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown. And even with the Mike Williams injury, I don't think Keenan Allen should be ahead of those guys.
Yeah.
If Keenan Allen can stay healthy the entire season, which is a big if, then I think he's probably a top 10 wide receiver. Top 10, top 12. He's not a top 2 guy. He's not a top 5 guy, which I think some people would consider him a top 5 guy without Mike Williams. The the games are going to slow down. What he did this week, 12 fantasy points, is more, I think, in his cards.
Yeah.
12, 14, like those 46 and 31-point weeks are not going to be what Keenan Allen, I think, is really about at this point in his career. He's a possession guy. Like he had 20 targets, dude, in week 3 against Minnesota. 20 targets. It's just not going to stay the case the whole season.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. He's also very injury prone. He's 31 years old. He's been injured pretty much. Last year, he missed a lot of time. 2021, he missed a little bit of time. 2020, he missed a little bit of time. He had a little streak there where he was completely healthy, but at the beginning of his career, he was also injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
I think at 31 years old, it's just really hard to expect him to play a full season and produce at a top 3 level. I don't see it happening. Even at a top 5 level, I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So if you can trade him at a top 5 level, which there are leagues where you can, do it.
If you have the opportunity to walk up to somebody and say, Keenan Allen for Jahmyr Chase, you do that.
I would do that, yeah.
So this is not really an indictment on Keenan Allen because I think he's a wonderful fantasy asset. And if you choose
he's still a top 12 receiver.
If you choose not to move on from him, then that's totally on you. Like, fine. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not judging you for that. This is really more, this and the next guy is really more or less, they can't produce at the level that they've been producing. Correct. Like it will come down, and it's not really an indictment on Keenan Allen, but I just to me, I don't think that there's an opportunity for Keenan Allen to continue to get the massive target share that he's gotten. Now he might continue to do it, but 20 targets in a game is absolutely absurd. And 40 fantasy points in a game is absolutely absurd. So, he will come down to earth, but he's still a great fantasy asset. So you can keep him on your team if you want. But using the opportunity, this is why fantasy football, I love making trades like this, because some guys outperform what their actual ceiling is, and you can use that to your advantage. So you're 4 weeks through the season, you say, Keenan Allen's the wide receiver 2 on the season, and you say it with all your gusto, with all your belief that you have in your heart, even if you don't believe it. And you tell that person that they are the wide receiver 2 on the season, and that's what I got to get back in return, and you make a trade, you can kind of, oversell that value. Mike Williams, this is in a dynasty league, so a little bit different, but 2 years ago, I won the fantasy championship in a dynasty league, and I had Mike Williams on my team. Now, hindsight, in a dynasty league, you probably shouldn't do this, but Mike Williams went off and had a huge game, and Keenan Allen had not started the season well. So I traded Mike Williams at the time, who was, boom, through the roof, having really great games, for Keenan Allen. Well, Mike Williams came down to earth and ended up like a wide receiver 3 the rest of the season, and Keenan Allen was a wide receiver 1 on the season. So I traded a wide receiver 3 for a wide receiver 1 because I used a player's height, the height of their game, to my advantage to get a player that was much better. And that's what you should do with Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is not going to produce as a top 5 wide receiver all season. Try to see if you can get a top 5 wide receiver on your team for a guy like Keenan Allen. Maybe one that's underperforming, like a Jahmyr Chase, and see if you can do that. Even if you got to throw somebody in the deal, that's fine. And it may not be.
Or even if you can get a top 5 back, like if you could trade him for a Saquon, I would probably do that. If your team needed a running back. If you had a lot of receivers and you needed a running back,
but you drafted Keenan Allen as a dude who wasn't going to be a top 5 wide receiver, and now you have that, and you can use that as a trade chip. So if you
probably drafted him as a wide receiver too.
It's like drafting. If you draft him in the 3rd round, it's like drafting Saquon in the 3rd round if you trade him for Saquon Barkley. So,
and he was a 4th round pick in most leagues.
Yeah, for real. So go get yourself. Go trade yourself away, Keenan Allen, get yourself something.
Or keep him.
It's fine. Puka Nacua is the next guy, and like I just said, he's still good. He's still fine. I think with him and Cooper Kupp, they're both going to produce. So don't be afraid. Don't be like, oh my God, Puka's not going to produce. Oh, I got to trade him. Don't panic. I still think he's going to be good for fantasy. I think his floor is wide receiver 20. So I think you're fine keeping him. You're okay keeping him rest of the season. But the peak that he's at right now for fantasy football, he's not getting back to that with Cooper Kupp as a starting wide receiver as well on the team. No. They can't give him the same volume and then also give Cooper Kupp the volume that they give him. So he is going to lose target share. He is going to lose opportunity. And because of that, it might not be enough to damage him fantasy football wise in terms of, him still staying in the wide receiver 2 conversation, but it's definitely going to damage his opportunity to finish as a wide receiver 1 this year. I don't think they both can do it. So I would say Cooper Kupp, or at least produce as a wide receiver 1 following Cooper Kupp's return. So what I would do is trade Puka Nacua now for a valuable asset that actually has the opportunity and has the ceiling to continue to have success, and it isn't going to be capped by another player coming in and taking opportunity. So, and Puka was a waiver wire ad for most of you. So, like, this isn't even like, whoever you're getting is a free asset at this point. You know what I mean? It's a free ad to your team. So I would trade Puka, based on his ceiling and his value right now in a similar situation, the example I gave a second ago. You can get something good for Puka, so I would do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Puka's another tough one, though. I am very okay with you keeping Puka. I think he's very, very solid. Even with Cooper Kupp there, I think he's still going to be good. But you are right. If Cooper Kupp and him are healthy rest of the season, he's just not going to play at the level that he will. Most of those targets are going to go to Cooper Kupp. He's still going to produce. He's still going to have a lot of targets, but you're not going to see the 15. You're not going to see the 20 target games. That's going to be for Cooper Kupp. You're going to see him more at that like 7-ish targets per game, which is still pretty good. Throws a touchdown, gets a touchdown in there, and you're looking at top 10 performances, but he's not going to be that consistently. I think he's probably, with Cooper Kupp, probably in that wide receiver 12 to 15 range, not wide receiver 4. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And he might even be like closer to wide receiver 15 to 20, as you said. I think at the floor you said wide receiver 20. I think that's probably, I would agree with that. I see him more being like that wide receiver 15 range, but either way, that's not top 5. And people know Cooper Kupp's coming back, so it's not as easy of a sell because it's like, oh, well, Cooper Kupp's coming back, so Puka's not going to do that well. But there are going to be people in your league that think the opposite and think that Puka is the guy now, or that with Cooper Kupp there, Puka's still going to be a top 5, top 6, top 7 guy. And as you said, you picked him up off the waiver wires. He's been great for you those first 4 weeks. I think it's a perfect sell. If you can trade him for a high-level player, a true difference maker for the rest of the season, absolutely do that, because Puka was that for the first 4 weeks. But with Cooper Kupp there, I don't think he's going to be a difference maker. I don't think he's going to be that elite 30-point kind of guy in your fantasy lineups, but he still could have that value where you could get somebody that could be that.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Our last sell of the week is Alexander Mattison. See you later, everyone. I'm just kidding. We did Alexander Mattison last week or the week before, and I don't think he sucks. Week. Was it last week? I don't think he sucks. I don't think he sucks as bad as everyone was making it out to be in the first couple weeks of the season, because it was a rough 2 weeks. It was week 1 and 2.
He did have some tough matches.
Between the fumbles and the mistakes and all of that stuff, the tough matchups really got to him, and he improved. So he got 4.6 yards per carry in week 3, and week 4 he had 5.59. He's been getting a much larger workload, and the running game is back for Minnesota, which is a good sign. And I think there's some positives there for Alexander Mattison. The problem is it feels like either Minnesota is losing and behind the whole time, or they're like right in the game and they have to pass at the end. And so like touchdowns have been an issue for Madison. He has 1 touchdown on the season. It's a receiving touchdown. So there's obviously some drawbacks to Alexander Mattison, but he has 13, 17, 10, and then the 1 4-point game against Philadelphia. He's running back 19 on the season. If there's any opportunity to sell this guy off of what he has done, I do it, because I think that there's going to be, like, this week he has KC. So this is going to be another week where he's probably not going to perform at his best. He's probably going to be, yards per carry is going to be poor. It's not going to be a great game. Like Rick said on the last show, Minnesota's going to be playing from behind. Then all of a sudden you're going to be back at square one with Madison, and They have a game against Chicago. So to me, it's like he's almost like against good matchups, you can start him. Against mediocre matchups, you can start him. But against bad matchups, you probably should sit him because he's not going to perform. But with that being said, I don't like to have that on my team. And if you have multiple assets that you can compile, like you have Puka and Alexander Madison, you can probably get something real dang good to
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, like you could get something really good with that. So I would trade Alexander Madison if you have the opportunity to. He's an okay like flex option on a week to week basis if you want to keep him. But I think it's time just to move on and sell, cut your ties, and move on from that situation. With that being said, if he drops 20 against KC, I reserve the right.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's, I have harped on him a lot, but he's not like the worst running back in the league. And against good matchups, he will be okay.
Yeah.
Against the Chargers, against the Panthers. But when he plays against a tough run defense, like he's not going to be great.
Matchup proof.
And that's going to start this week against the Chiefs. He does then have the Bears, but then he's got the 49ers right after that. So it's a lot of ups and downs, and it's not somebody that you can rely on. Not to mention, I don't think Cam Akers is there to steal his job, but it was better without Cam Akers there. Now Cam Akers comes in and he's getting a couple extra touches a game. I think was it week 3 where Madison had 25 touches? I don't think that's happening again. I think he's going to be around that, 18 to 20 touch mark, which is still pretty good, but it's not like the workhorse that we got to see in week 3. So it's not somebody that you want to rely on. And I think it is a good time to sell him because if you just look at his overall season production, it's not too bad. He's a running back too. He's where you drafted him. He's had a good week or two, but for the rest of the season, and if you're just considering his week to week where he's going to be ranked, like I don't know. I don't love it.
Yeah, it's a tough reality. I have Alexander Madison, so I'm like he has been in and out of my lineup for the pretty much. I think he started twice for me and sat twice for me so far to start the season. So, I mean, we have 2 flexes in our league, and I still have guys that are better than him. I tried to sell him. I tried. But, you might not get a lot, and like this week wasn't like an explosion game, but there will be weeks where that happens. So when that does happen, like use it as an opportunity because he does sometimes outperform where he actually is capable of performing. But anyway, there you go. That's actually the end of the show. Now, week 5 coming at you. Hopefully you enjoy this weekend. You get to watch the Jacksonville Jaguars again in London because they're trying out. They're trying out for a London team. But enjoy the weekend, guys. See you later.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.